now call to order the March 14th, 2023 meeting of the Wellington Board of Trustees, time being 6:31 p.m. Oh,
We thought you were on spring
I thought
break.
you were on spring break.
Yes. I'm not in Florida.
Okay.
Oh.
You are here with us.
I am. In your second favorite place.
Just as good. It's just like Florida. I mean, the weather was nice today.
Yeah, it was.
All right. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any amendments to the agenda this evening? Are there any conflicts of interest with the agenda this evening? Oh, yeah. What am I doing? May I get a roll call? May I get a roll call, please?
Trustee Gator. Trustee Gator. Here. Trustee Daly.
Present.
Trustee Mason.
Here.
Trustee Teets.
Here.
Trustee Wiegand.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem McDonald. Mayor Shosse.
Here. Are there any amendments to the agenda this evening? No. Any conflicts of interest? No. All right, now we move on to item B1, public comment. Individual wishing to speak, please approach the podium, state your name for the public record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak.
Christine Gator. One of the board's goals on the strategic plan is to attract businesses. I don't think having businesses apply for variances is a good way of attracting businesses, but that's what's happening in the industrial zone. Sorry, my voice, a little sick. Most uses in the industrial zone, 60%, have a setback requirement from residential. I understand why this is the case. Mr. Bird explained this to me, that you want to put more intense uses farther away from residential. So typically the progression goes residential to C1, which is light commercial, to C3, which is heavy commercial, to light industrial, to heavy industrial. For this reason, most industrial and C3 commercial zones have setbacks from residential because they shouldn't be zoned next to each other. So why is the town's only industrial zone, that blue one up there, right next to a residential zone? Why is the property south of Sparge, zone C3, which is right next to a residential? If the trustees want to encourage businesses, they should zone properties that have setbacks to residential appropriate distance away from the residentials. Wouldn't it be better for both residents and businesses alike if lighter use zones were placed next to residential zones so that the residents wouldn't have to complain and businesses wouldn't have to request a variance to use their own property? Since the zoning map is coming to you for approval, I ask that you consider zoning a better location for an industrial business so that it can use all of its property. Since the current industrial zone is so close to residential zone, perhaps it's better to zone it light industrial. Light industrial is in line with the comp plan. And if you're not allowed to change a zone when a business is in the middle of a site plan review, then I request that you conditionally approve the zoning map with this property as light industrial if the asphalt plant doesn't move to town. Also consider zoning the C3 property next to the Mountain View Ranch neighborhood as C1 so that you have less intense uses next to a residential property. Once again, C1 is in line with the comp plan. The land use code was passed in March of last year without the zoning map. Now the zoning map is coming to you without this new board having looked at the land use code. The land use code affects properties, and I just want you to look at the zoning map in relation to the land use code. Use the land use code to determine whether a property is zoned correctly. Please don't pass the zoning map in a vacuum. So I just wanted to make you aware so that you have time whenever the zoning map comes to you, start looking into the land use code. Talking about that property and these properties for C3, right next to heavy use, intense use, right next to residential, make them less intense uses, light industrial and C1. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Dr. Fred Condis. I'm a resident of Wellington, and I live in Buffalo Creek. First time I've been here in a long time, but I felt that I needed to do some homework. So I know you can't discuss the controversy over the placement and the building of the asphalt plant. Yeah, so therefore I'll just make statements about it and ask a question unrelated to that so that it helps me understand and the colleagues that I'm working with and other concerned citizens that I'm learning about now can attend to answering those questions so that there's some clarity about where we are and what's going on. So my concern is that and it's partly my fault, like it is for the majority of citizens in this city. I dare say that if we went down the street and knocked on the block in Buffalo Creek where I live, and I live a block away from the park, my wife and I, we retired here and enjoy the community immensely. But I suspect that if I knocked on doors and asked the people what they know about the initiative to build the asphalt plant, I suspect that there'd be a large majority, well, not a large majority, but a large number. At least half of the people don't know about it. They're not aware of it. They haven't heard anything about it. And I've run across several in the last week. And that frankly concerns me. It not so much of the failure of, some people claim there's a failure of governance here, lack of communication, et cetera, but the failure of the citizens themselves. Awareness is important and communication and dialogue is important among the people that you represent. So I'm going to encourage more people to come to these meetings and more people to be aware and more people to read the minutes. By the way, I couldn't find the minutes from, I'm tech, my grandkids say, I've got to drag you into the 21st century, Grandpa, with the technology. I'm really slow, but I'll get to the minutes because I want to read them and I'll view the videos of this. My concerns are zoning, number one. I've learned a lot of it about the zoning process that's gone on. I don't know the history, so I can't speak intelligently about that. So I'm not going to make a value judgment about it, except other than to say, I'm concerned that a heavy industry is planned on property that is less than about half a mile from my home. One of my dearest colleagues that I served in higher education with is a biochemist and a chemical engineer, and environmental engineering is his specialty. And if I go beyond the 3 minutes, kick me off and
That was your 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
But may I ask one last question?
So this is for public comment.
Okay.
So questions would be directed to town staff.
Okay. Town staff?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, next item is going to be presentation by Larimer County Sheriff's Office Investigation Division presentation. Members of the Sheriff's Office will now present the services and capabilities of the Investigation Division, and I welcome Lieutenant Robbins and Sergeant Maul.
Good evening. We came up here tonight just to we haven't done this in a long time. I don't know the last time we've been up to the board, and wanted to let you guys know what we offer and what we bring to the table as the Investigations Division. We have had some changes over the last 6 months in the way we assign cases. And so what we've done used to be, we assign cases, crimes against persons and crimes against property. Now we've kind of split into a north or south division within the Investigations Division itself. Sergeant Maul's our sergeant for the north side, and he has 5 investigators working the north side. We also have another sergeant and 5 investigators working the south side. And that dividing line is basically Highway 392, well, that's Highway 392. Yeah, all the way across. So that's how we're assigning things. Also want to just let you know that if we have a major incident, it's not just limited to the north side coming up here responding. It would be the full investigations unit to include the strategic enforcement unit, which brings 16 investigators, plus 3 sergeants, 2 lieutenants, the crime lab, our crime lab, 5 CSI technicians, and as well as the intel analysts that come along with that. Basically, that's what we bring. We investigate everything from, as you well know, from burglaries to vehicle trespasses to sex assaults, homicides, suicides, unattended deaths. We are responsible for countywide, but as being part of your law enforcement services by contract, that's kind of what we bring to the table. We have a lot of resources within investigations, a lot of specialty areas. We have polygraphers, which Investigator Shaw and Sergeant Maul are both polygraphers. We have 5 of those total. We have specialists in auto theft. We have specialists in arson. We have specialists in homicide investigations. So we bring a lot to the table. We wanted to present it to y'all so you knew what y'all were getting. And let me introduce myself because I know I have a Southern drawl. I've been in law enforcement for 28 years. Originally from Tennessee, moved out here about 15 years ago. Used to live in Wellington West for a large amount of time. Kevin, you want to introduce yourself as well?
Kevin Maul, been in investigations for, I've been with the sheriff's office. I'm going on 32 years and law enforcement with here and 22 years in investigations, working in almost every capacity that there is in our investigations. One of the strengths of particularly the investigations with the sheriff's office is, at least for going back now 3 sheriffs, it's always been a voluntary position. You promote, test to get into that, but there's no mandatory rotation. So we have a very good depth of experience. Like I say, I've been in investigations since 1999, and we've got people that have been in longer than that. And one of the single biggest strengths in quality investigative work is experience. And that's being able to say you've been there and done that. And, you know, I've had the opportunities, and most of our people have had the opportunities to be involved in a lot of different types of investigations, which gives us, we're able to provide anything and everything that pretty much can find out.
Like I said, we also, our strategic enforcement unit is part of investigations as well. They do high-risk fugitive warrants. They do human trafficking investigations, internet crime against children investigations. So we kind of cover the gamut. I'm also the commander of the SWAT team or Archer team, all hazard crisis response team. It's separate. You'll hear about that more on a different time. But if you have any questions, we're here. We're welcome to ask, and we'll answer them if we can. So.
Or we'll start with Trustee Gator. You have any questions?
Not any questions specifically. Well, I guess I could have one. Like, I know, I think we technically in our contract have like 0.5 of an investigator. How does that work in terms of if something comes up, Sergeant Terry's like, hey, we need an investigator up in Wellington. How does that work in terms of like rotation or the different people up north with other cases?
The way it works is it depends on what it is. And the reason I say it, because we do specialize in stuff. So if it's let's just say it's an arson, for instance, we would assign our arson investigator to that. If it's a burglary, we may assign one of the 5 that's up here. If it happens on one of our days where we're not working, we don't have anybody working, we have on-call people, and it would go to that on-call person. So it really depends on what it is to some extent. If it's a specialty, then we would assign that to our specialty investigator. Like vehicle theft would go to Investigator Jesse Eden most of the time. Arson would go to Investigator Atwood. So it kind of depends on what it is.
Okay. I said we haven't assigned a particular person to say you are the Wellington. I think that'd be inefficient to do that, and you're definitely limiting yourself and locking yourself out of a lot of the different skill sets. But, and it's also impractical. For the most part, a half person. We did investigative services 24 hours a day, 7 days.
Right.
And we obviously did not tap a single investigator to do that. And so everything rotates around, and you may go 2 or 3 weeks without a major significant incident that you investigate, and then you may have two or three, and then that.
Gotcha.
And that's very realistic in that occurs on a regular basis. So.
Thank you.
Trustee Teets?
No, I'm just grateful I was able to tour the facility over there and see how large the investigations unit is, and the privilege to say that we are paying for 0.5 of an investigative process, but I know that you guys are 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and you're more than half a person, especially with that team, and getting to walk through some of the sex crime units and the other units and how they all individually pair together was actually really beneficial to see. It's not, we pay for 12 people, we're paying for an entire service that I think has substantial value to it because of the pairing that you guys offer with other counties in the area to help with investigatives. So I'm grateful. Thank you so much.
Trustee Wiegand?
First off, I appreciate everything you guys do. I do got a couple questions. Right now, with all you're dealing with, what's the main, are you seeing any increase in any particular one aspect of what you're dealing with? Also to human trafficking. I know that's getting worse right now. How is it impacting northern Colorado?
So our number one increase, and I don't know why, and it's a statewide, is motor vehicle thefts. We are inundated with motor vehicle thefts. And I don't know why. I don't know. I don't know what the cause of that is. I will, the other contract town that we serve, Berthoud, they have a much higher rate than you guys do. I attribute some of that to being the proximity to Longmont, and they have a higher crime rate. And also having the Love's truck stop down there, that I know that increases it some as well. But that's the main thing that we've seen an increase in is motor vehicle thefts, and that's statewide. We've seen a significant increase. Vehicle trespasses, we used to see a lot of, those have gone down some. Part of the problem with those, the state legislator has seen fit to reduce those from felonies to misdemeanors now. We're just not, there's not as much teeth in the law as there used to be. Human trafficking is that's a tough one. And the reason I say that is we started our SEU unit, one of their primary job descriptions was to focus on human trafficking. And we tried to focus on all aspects of it. Minor human trafficking, adult human trafficking, massage parlor human trafficking. And once again, and I'm going to just be brutally honest, the state legislator has not done us any favors. They reduced all crimes related to human trafficking basically to petty offenses now, with the exception of prostituting a minor or soliciting. And we kind of focused on those over the last few years. We have had operations in Wellington. We've had operations on that down in the Mulberry corridor and also around the Johnstown area, and they have been successful. We've drawn perpetrators that's looking to engage with sexual contact with a minor in exchange for money on all of those. And we've been very successful with those and getting those people off the street. How's it impacting us? Well, I think overall the impact is a lot of the human trafficking stuff goes hand in hand with drug use and drug sales. You see an increase in drug use and drug sales, you're going to see an increase in the human trafficking as well, historically, and that's what we see. So I think it's twofold. You see the human trafficking and you see the drug use and the drug sales. It goes along with all other crimes. I worked drugs for a lot of years, and I can say still 80% of our crime across the nation is directly related somehow to drugs, either use or sales.
Is there a lot of organized crime here with the drugs and the human trafficking?
There is a significant amount of organized crime with the drugs, and that would be direct links to the cartels in Mexico. People are surprised to hear that, but absolutely direct links. If you think about Interstate 25, where does it end up at? Ends up in El Paso, Texas, basically. And that's a direct. So a lot of the drugs come to Denver, and they'll go be dispersed without. So we have cartel people involved with the cartels up here for drugs. And on the human trafficking side, the main thing, organized crime we see is the massage parlors that you see in Fort Collins and Loveland are normally associated with, how do I put this? Yeah, I'm going to. It's Asian mafia, basically. They're Oriental style massage parlors, and it's very, very difficult to gain any traction with them because everybody we're dealing with locally, they're not the bosses. They come from California mostly, or the East Coast, and then overseas. We do work with the FBI, and we're just actually starting up a a multidisciplinary team with FBI to work on human trafficking. But it's very hard to prosecute those cases past the local jurisdiction. But a lot of times people don't want to talk to us.
Last thing real quick.
Sure.
What can the citizens here do to help you guys out on this?
Report, call us and let us know.
Reports and communications. That's one of the single biggest things. And it's to be in a partnership. We're up here all the time. And speaking with Sergeant Cherry at times, I know we've mentioned, times that, how do we know we're here? Who is our assigned? We're all in phone calls, we all drive in our cars. It's more conducive to us to slide into a neighborhood, slide out without advertising our presence, in a lot of our cases. So that's how we do things. But when we need these things.
Yeah, but the main thing is for the citizens to let us know, call us. If they just suspect something, that's what we're here for. We can investigate it. It may be nothing. If it's nothing, great. If it's something to it, then we need to look at it. So.
Trustee Mason.
I don't have any questions for you guys. Just want to say that, the sheriff's office, you guys have been doing a great job for the town and obviously being the northern gateway up here, opioids, fentanyl and methamphetamine, that sort of thing. I see you guys out on I-25 certainly all the time, catching these guys for this type of stuff. And that's nothing but a good service for the town. So I really appreciate what you guys do.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Trustee Daly.
I really appreciate you bringing up human trafficking because a lot of people don't think that's here, but it's alive and well in Northern Colorado and definitely in Wellington. I work with vulnerable communities for recovering survivors of human trafficking. So thank you for bringing that up. And it's very much in our backyard, targeting our kids through their phones or through social media, all those kind of things. Anybody's kid is vulnerable right now in our homes. So it's really good to know that. The questions I have, well, first, let me say thank you. I'm pretty sure members of your team attended family night, Boys and Girls Club a while ago. We got to hang out in a SWAT vehicle, get fingerprints done, watch drones, and there was a variety of other things that happened. I assume that was folks with your team. And of course, our local folks too. And then we got to play dodgeball with them.
That's good.
So it was good. So I was on their team because it was adults versus kids, but would have been nice to play against them. I'm pretty sure it happened. Pretty sure it happened. But my question is relating to newer technologies. So we saw drones, and they were operating those in front of us. What about, and you talked about internet crimes, but what kind of investigation happens and what kind of team do you have supporting, like investigating social media or any other online type things? I imagine there's so much there.
There is, and part of what our SEU unit does. So we're part of ICAC, which is Internet Crimes Against Children.
Okay.
And I'm not going to go too deep into it, but we get cyber tips from them all the time. And that's part
Okay.
of the federal cyber tips that comes through ICAC. And so part of what my SEU team is, they go up and set up undercover profiles on a lot of social media. And if we get I'll just use myself, if we get a complaint that Donnie Robbins is doing something, looking for child pornography or trying to entice a child, we will reach out to them in a UC undercover capacity, posing as a juvenile, and trying to get them to meet with us.
Yeah.
And in that way, that's a lot of the way we do business. Now, like I said, I'm not going to go too far into it.
Yeah.
We also use pole cameras, and those are covert cameras that with a search warrant, we can place where we can remotely surveil a business or a house, whatever. Like I said, it requires a search warrant. So that's something we have to have probable cause and has to go in front of a judge. Some of the other thing we do have also GPS tracking devices that we can place on certain items and track people that way to help with our criminal investigations as well. Those also have to be obtained through a search warrant by a judge. And then one of the major ways, not so much, well, we use them not as much as Drug Task Force, which is part of investigations as well. But Drug Task Force uses a lot of wiretaps and things like that to obtain information, which obviously requires a court order as well as probable cause. So we kind of run the gamut. We have a lot of abilities. technology wise to get onto the internet. We also have, and I'm trying not to disclose too much. We have access to certain parts of the web that normal people don't. Okay.
As of, a few months ago, it started a little bit before the current sheriff came in, but just the latter half of last year. For the first time, really got a person dedicated and assigned to deal specifically with that. Specifically, yeah.
What's that acronym? Tell me one. Yeah.
Internet crimes against children.
Okay, that's it.
Yeah.
You said that
Part
earlier.
out of the, public.
And it's a part of a larger task force across the state, across the country, basically, that agencies belong to for specifically for child pornography and internet luring of kids.
Does the use of drones with cameras require search warrants?
Depends on the situation. Normally, no. If it's someplace that I can view from the a roadway, then no, it wouldn't require it. If it's normally what we use drones for is like a SWAT incident where there's a barricade, there's some exigency involved where it wouldn't require a search warrant. And then that way it's just for officer safety, it's for public safety, basically, where we would be using that drone. A lot of times our drones are also used for missing kids, missing persons, and obviously we got 2,800 square miles and a lot of it's remote areas. Getting that a drone up in the air is very much a resource in locating those people.
That's
So,
great. That's great. Those are all my questions, but thank you. And you're welcome, of course, for any of that community engagement. We always welcome more people. We see Sergeant Cherry, who's deputies everywhere, but we welcome all the visitors. So thank you.
Thank you.
I'd just like to thank both of you gentlemen for doing what you do and keeping us safe and coming up here presenting to us and taking time out of your day to do so. Really appreciate it. And, we wouldn't have the community we have without the safety that you guys provide and the investigations and things of that nature. So I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, thank you all for listening to us. I hope we didn't take up too much of your time. Thank you. Thanks, guys.
The next item on the agenda will be the consent agenda. This is going to be the minutes of February 28th, 2023, and the resolution approving the settlement of Colorado Attorney General. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
I'll second.
May I get a roll call, please?
Trustee Gator,
Yes.
trustee Mason,
Yes.
trustee Daly,
Yes.
trustee Teets,
Yes.
trustee Wiegand,
Yes.
Mayor Shosse.
Yes.
Thank you.
On to the first action item. It'll be presenting a community survey with custom questions by Town Deputy Administrator Kelly Houghteling. After the board directed staff to proceed with the community survey on January 24th, 2023 meeting. Ms. Houghteling.
Good evening, Mayor and Board of Trustees. Kelly Houghteling, Deputy Town Administrator. So before you tonight is the community survey, and I'll break it into two different chunks. So first, I'd like to talk about the baseline community survey, the standard questions, and then I'd like to talk about the custom questions that were in your packet. And those are just examples of what other communities are doing. So the custom or the standard questions that are in the packet. So I did work with the company to try to edit some of those. There were some questions that do not apply to Wellington, like access to beachfront. So we took that out. Similarly, other communities might take out snow plow services. So we do have the ability to take some things out where they don't apply. But the whole idea of working with the National Research Center is ensuring that we have a baseline standard survey that can be applied to other communities across the country. And that's where we get the statistically valid information, and then we can see all the other comparators. So I'll pause and see if the board has any questions about the standard questions that are included in your packet. And we can also talk about the demographic questions in there as well.
Start with Trustee Mason.
Okay.
Trustee Daly.
I'm a fan of all the standard questions. I don't have any concerns or questions with those.
Trustee Gator.
I didn't have to go first. I love it. So overall, I think the questions were good. There was just some areas within the standard questions where I'd like to adjust, not the question itself, but some of the specific areas. So let me get to the specific questions that I had some concerns with. Bear with me 1 second here. Okay, so really a lot of it just has to do with my concerns primarily, and again, this is something we can discuss as a board, is from my view, our job as the town is to take care of all of our residents, period. It's not to focus on one group or another group. And there are specific areas within the question. So for example, in question number 5, like the making all residents feel welcome. I love that question. Then it goes into attracting people from diverse backgrounds, value and respecting residents of diverse backgrounds. And then it starts to, when we get into this diversity focus in questions, I think it does 2 things. Number 1, I think it takes us away from what our role as government is. That's not our role to talk about diversity and who should live here, who shouldn't, whatever. That's not our job as government. Number 2, it divides people. For good reasons or bad reasons, people have opinions on both sides of the aisle. And as soon as we start going into that, we start dividing the community. And I really don't want to see us as the government creating the vehicle that's going to build on that. So I'd really like to see where it goes into diversity. I'd like to just see things, are we making all of our residents feel welcome, not targeting this group or that group or the other group. So on question 5, there's the 2 and 3 about diverse backgrounds. I'd like to see those removed.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Completely removed or put all, or would that negate your purpose?
I mean, you can say attracting people from all backgrounds. That's fine.
Okay, I just want.
And
clarification
value
on
and
that.
respecting all residents. If we want to change it to wording like that, love it.
Okay,
If we want to just change it from diverse backgrounds to just all of our residents, I have absolutely no problem with it. So that's my concern, is when we start to use that language of, oh, we're focusing on diversity as the government, again, it starts taking us down this road that leads to conflict. And again, it starts taking us to where, again, this is something I've dealt with my entire life, is being a minority. Is people are always like, oh, you just have this. It's like, no, I'm a person just like anybody else. I don't want to be treated differently. I don't want to be looked at differently. I want to be respected just like everyone else. Let's see. So at the very end of question number 7, again, openness and acceptance of the community towards people of diverse backgrounds. If we're going to change that just to all residents or something, that's fine. Otherwise, remove that question or just that piece. The rest of it's fine. 8's fine. 9's fine. So 10 is a perfect example of what I think we need to have. So if you look at the bottom of question number 10, treating all residents fairly, treating residents with respect. That's what the language I think we should have, right? We're not targeting a group. We're not targeting specific people. We're just saying we need to treat our people with respect. Question number 11, I would prefer that we not include the federal government. I don't really care what people think about what the federal government is doing. And the other thing too, people have very widely ranging views of what the federal government is or isn't doing or should or shouldn't be doing. And if we're putting that into question, we have the potential of either positively or negatively impacting our survey with their opinions towards the federal government when we really aren't looking for that information. So I just prefer that we not have that in there. I mean, we could, but it kind of comes back to the same thing. We don't really care.
I mean, that's.
I mean, we do for the policing services. I mean, we could include that. Federal, I would definitely say no. Even county, it has similar problems. You're gonna have people that are happy with what the county's doing, people that are unhappy. We could look at, I know some of the custom questions had to do with policing, which is really the major county service that we have is LCSO. I mean, yes, Larimer County does come up and do other things, but that's really the only major service that we currently have up here. And we're trying to get more like mental health services and things, but we don't currently have good access to that up here. So personally, I prefer to just, how do you think we're doing? And let's not tie other people into that question, because it may again lead to different responses that aren't necessarily tied to what we're doing, but how someone feels about this other government entity.
I agree, because this is a survey for Wellington residents.
Yeah. I'm not gonna die on that hill. That's just my opinion on that one. Went back and forth on, talking to Kelly earlier about transportation system, but it was a good point that that's something we're trying to improve on. And if we're looking for grants, the survey would be a good thing to have those, even though we don't currently have those services. If we have it in the survey, it's helpful when future we're trying to get grants. So that part makes sense. And then the other change that I'd request is just within the demographics portion. Just have woman, man, and then people just have other. Let's not get into all the crazy this, that, or the other thing, because it's like if you leave one thing out and then someone's like, you left this out or you left that out, just if they want to put other, that's totally fine.
Perfect.
And then we'll talk about the custom questions later. So that was just for the baseline questions.
Thank you. Trustee Teets.
I just have a question for Trustee Gator. Would it be easier to assume that you just want like the diverse background removed, but same questions are generally applicable?
Yeah, if we
As
want to
long
apply
as
it
it-
to everyone in the town, that's absolutely fine. I don't
Perfect.
want to go down the road of like, we're looking at trying to do this diversity thing. I don't think that's our role as government.
Got it. I would say on the one that you had asked, just making all residents feel welcome, I would really like to, if the board agrees, leave the taking care of vulnerable residents in there. I would like to know kind of what the community feels, elderly, disabled, homeless, because it's all things that we actually have here in Wellington. So that would be one that I would like to see stay if you're okay with that, Trustee Gator. Okay. And then the other question was, and this is more for Kelly, do we have surveys going out to any residents outside our city limits?
No, so it will be a statistically valid survey. They get the information from the postal service. It'll go out to 1,500 households and it's sent by mail. And should that resident not respond, they try to get 300 to 400 responses for a margin of error of plus or minus 5%. And then at the end of that period of when you collect those surveys, then we can open it up. And this won't be statistically valid, but we'll open up to Wellington residents and you have to verify with a zip code. So we do try to ensure that that baseline, that survey, that initial one that goes out is valid and they are specifically Wellington addresses. Staff will not have access to the individual households. The way that they put it in their system, I'll never be able to know who answered what question and it can't, and no one can ask for that information because it's, we want it to be anonymous in that sense, but it will be Wellington residents. But I cannot say that the open survey that we'll post on social media, I won't know unless, because you could lie on your zip code, but that's why you have those two different surveys.
Got it. And I will say, I did go online and read a lot about the company that's actually doing the survey. And it was really beneficial to go and read online and see how they base it off that scientific data with how many get mailed out and all of those extra details. But other than that, I don't have anything. I agree with Trustee Gator on his suggestions, but I'm really excited. Can we look at making sure we're pushing this more in the public, saying you should be expecting to see this come out at this time, do the Facebook and the newsletter reports to make sure that we hopefully get more than 300 or 400.
Yes, we will certainly promote it in advance and I'll work with Michaela and communications to see what kind of strategies we can use for that. So once but at first we want to know the timeline, which is very flexible. I put a draft timeline in your packet, but if the board doesn't feel comfortable with that, we can certainly alter. I want to make sure it's a survey that you all feel comfortable with. So once we have a good time frame in place, I'll work with Michaela and see what kind of comms will go out.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks.
Trustee Wiegand.
Yeah, I agree with Trustee Gator and Trustee Teets here on what they suggested. Yeah, this should be a unifying thing, not a divisive thing. And I've seen so many communities just get torn apart, looking for all the differences. And we ought to be bringing it together. And I think this is a good aspect, what we're looking at right now. So, thank you.
Trustee Mason.
No, actually, I do agree with trustee Gator's suggestions here. Yeah, I mean, it's simple language change to all, I think makes a lot of sense. As far as D14, again, that list could be a lot longer than it is. So let's just simplify that.
I had no comments, but everybody commented and said.
Go for it.
I'm going to try to stay calm, but I am incredibly appalled. So I need to provide a different perspective and then also speak that some of the comments that were made at this dais are not representative of the entire board. The word diversity is really important. And during our town hall where we talked with our community, friendliness to a diverse population was brought up repeatedly and is actually something that sparked the motivation behind supporting the transportation initiative that we did. Friendliness to diversity is incredibly important, and those words are important. Diversity is not just race. Diversity is age. Diversity is disability. Diversity is essentially any kind of group. Diversity could be queer, different cultures, anything like that. And that needs to be represented and appreciated within a community. This is a huge aspect that we're seeing kids really struggle with, is the fact that they may feel different or identify differently wherever that might be, and they don't feel that the community is friendly to them. So I'm offended by removing that word, especially since it is something that's acknowledged across the board within other communities that we can benchmark against. This is important. So the word diversity is not something I'd be willing to lose within our survey. It is incredibly, incredibly important, especially anything related to mental health of our children. So I wanted to put that out there. The other word that was utilized tonight as different identification of our queer community and calling them crazy is offensive. And I do not stand for that. And I will not allow that kind of communication to come from our board. Queer identification is important, and it is a part of each individual within our community. So to say that that's crazy and that you're not willing or caring to understand that within our community is offensive. And this is why. Of all the groups that we're looking for that are vulnerable, and it's important to identify these groups because these are the ones who require the most care. These are the ones that could be left behind. These are the folks that may have issues with affordability. And it's hard to say because each of these groups that we generally would qualify as making up a population are groups that have proven oppression. And there are people who might be within multiple groups of oppression. These are our most vulnerable individuals within our community. If we do not know who they are, where they are, and whether or not they feel welcome and belonging in our community, we are leaving them behind actively. We are deciding to actively leave them behind, and I will not stand for that. I also want to note that our queer community is the largest group that have been identified as oppressed within our community. Within our schools, 30% of high school students within Poudre School District identify as queer. That is a larger group than race differences. That is a larger group than poverty. That is the largest group of oppression within our community, Northern Colorado, the state, and the nation. This is really important. And to say that they're crazy or to exclude those options within our survey that we're saying we want to know about you is wrong. And we are taking a step back into the past that is not acceptable. So we've identified that this is a top concern causing suicide for our high school students within Poudre School District. So don't dare let us say that it doesn't matter to Wellington. Absolutely not.
Thank you. I agree with Trustee Gator. I don't know about the switching from diverse to all. I don't know as though it really matters that much. But I do agree on man, woman, and other. And for the recommended questions. Did you? The ones that are on here, are those the ones that would go on the survey unless we say we do not want them?
Are you talking about the standard questions?
Oh, we're on
Oh, just
standard
on
right
the
now.
standard
Nope,
questions
never
right
mind.
now.
That's next.
Yeah, we stop
Okay.
at the demographics and then we'll get into the standard ones
Okay,
right after.
so we're
this.
good. I think we're
So
good on the,
I just need to ask a question or just clarify. Because, and I can tell you a little bit about the survey because I've been a participant. So if you don't respond right away, they do send you emails or not emails, but they do mail you reminders over and over again up until like the day that it's due. So they do push you, and I finally did submit my survey. The other thing is if we, and I hear what you're saying about the diverse and diversity piece and those words, but if we take them out of this survey, we are no longer able to benchmark ourselves with that question against anybody else. Correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
That question did come up today and I did speak with NRC and Polco, the company. So it would just be, your comparators would be nothing because it's no longer valid because taking out the word diversity and switching it for all, you just would not have any benchmark data. And if the goal is to repeat this survey every 2 years, not knowing the wishes of a future board, and then they might get into that board tweaking it for what they need as well. So it does get really tricky if we continue to tweak. It's an option, but you just won't have that data moving forward.
So a question on that. So for example, on question number 5, please rate the job you feel Wellington community does each of the following. So are you saying that if we change the wording on numbers 2 and 3 on that list, because there's 4 sub questions within that, are you saying that number 1 and number 4 now become statistically invalid, or just the 2 that we change?
The 2 that you change.
Got it. Okay.
Uh-huh. That's correct.
But the others that we didn't change, those portions are still statistically valid. It would just be the specific ones that we changed in those words. Those ones would not compare against other communities.
You
Okay.
don't, yes, you wouldn't
That's
have any benchmark data
Right.
on those.
Question, will anyone under the age of 18 years old be mailed a survey to complete?
I think it's saying like if it's sent to your household, you're just, no, it's sent to the house. No, I don't.
okay,
How do you?
Sent to specific residents, correct?
property owners.
Yes.
Renters.
So we're
Uh-huh.
not going to be sending this to minors, correct?
I
I
mean,
The
unless a
property
minor owned a
address?
house,
Minor
I'm
could
struggling
own-
to
I mean,
answer.
A minor
that
could own a
question.
house technically.
I suppose they could, or
Got
they.
it.
they
I just
probably
wanted to
can't.
verify because I do want to let Trustee Daly know that I hear where she's coming from. But also at the same time, those statistics and surveys, when we're focusing on minors and all of the survey results that came out from supporting all of the above, I do want to say that those surveys were conducted at the middle school, high school. These surveys, to my understanding, are for the generalized population and understanding the community as a whole, where making all residents feel welcome, it's already a question that's there. So do we even need 2 and 3? If making all residents feel welcome and then taking care of vulnerable residents, that actually covers a diverse background right there, elderly, disabled, and homeless.
Even in the letter that we send out, we are specifically stating, in order to hear from a diverse group of residents, the adult 18 years or older in your household who most recently had a
Got it.
birthday shake. So we are specifically asking for people over 18.
Okay.
Doesn't mean that someone else couldn't take it if they got it, but that is specifically what we're asking for.
I don't have any more questions.
I just got
So-
one comment to make. You know, when you're talking about diverse, I'm diverse from
Right, our
you,
board's
you,
diverse.
we're all diverse here. I mean,
Yeah,
are you talking about college education? Are you talking about high school education?
career, yeah.
Yeah, careers, different things like that. Diverse has a lot of connotations. And it isn't just, and that's why, you know, it's always race or whatever else, but there's so much more to it than that. But again, we had somebody from Tennessee here earlier, and that's about as diverse as you can get. So again, I mean, that has a lot of different meanings to it. So.
All the youth in our community live in homes with adults in our community. And their comfort is part of that family. I just want to reiterate, I'm telling you, this is what's been identified as the top reason that youth are killing themselves. And we are saying it's not important to capture. I just want to make sure that's super clear
Yeah.
that everyone else is, but not us. And we're actively doing that on purpose.
I
I don't
disagree that that's an
understand.
active on
Oh,
purpose.
we're not gonna sit here and go back and forth to folks. I'm thinking personally, and tell me what you guys think, that we leave the diverse in question 5 so we can have measurable results with other communities. Because otherwise, well, I mean, what's the point of having the survey if we have nothing to base it off of to see where we're compared with other communities?
I think the standard questions should be what we do because we're using this to benchmark, and those are exactly what other communities are doing. So we should do it exactly in that purpose if that's our goal.
I guess kind of my whole point behind it, which is my concern, is that what we need to be focusing on? Attracting diversity. Like, to me, I look at it as we need to be taking care of utilities. We need to be fixing roads, sidewalks, parks, bridges, things like that. I'm saying that is not the job. I know that's become a change, but this not the place to litigate that. That people seem to think that this is government's job now is to ensure diversity of a specific area. That's not the job of government, and it shouldn't be the job of government. And so if we're asking those questions, if we're saying as a board, yes, this needs to become our job to ensure diversity of the community, absolutely. You need to have those questions in there because you need to know, are we doing as good a job at ensuring a diverse community, but then that now becomes something that you're now pouring time, money, and energy and taxpayer dollars into making sure that we have a diverse community. And I don't think that is our
So-
role as government, which is why I understand we won't have.
So
for
if it's
those
not
specific
measurable,
things.
just remove it.
It's not measurable, but it's like, again, if we're making the decision that consciously we need to be focused on diversity in this town as our top priority as a board, yeah, you need to have measurable. But from my opinion, I do not think that is where we should be focusing our energy.
I think our opinions matter right now. What we're trying to find out is what our community cares about. And we're supposed to do what the community cares about. So if we're eliminating question, we're no longer asking if that's important to them. Why are we here? To represent people, to know what's important to them. And if we're eliminating a question or the purpose of that question, then what are we doing? I can't say what's important to me, so we should only ask questions about that. That's not the purpose of this. The purpose is what's important to everyone else. The standard questions should say as they are for the purpose of benchmark. Over and over again in strategic planning, we talked about how we need to measure ourselves against benchmarks. This is identifying those and allowing us to do it against the community. We said over and over and over again, we need to do it now. We have to do the benchmarks. So now we're saying, except for those things, that's not right.
I'm okay with removing the 2 center ones because making all residents feel welcome covers everybody. I am more interested on if our entire community, whether you're black, white, or blue, is happy than focusing in on a specific background, because attracting people from diverse backgrounds, define that question. Are we attracting whom?
I mean, technically, if
Like-
we're welcoming to all residents,
Right.
diversity just comes with that.
Naturally. It's not forced. We're not hyper focused. It's an understanding that we need to be welcoming to everybody, not center a single person out. We need to make sure that we're welcoming everybody into our community. I don't mind removing, just to get rid of the confusion or whatnot, 2 and 3, because taking care of vulnerable residents, Trustee Daly is specifying that vulnerable also includes many other diverse backgrounds as well. So that one could, in the et cetera, just add in what we would like to see: elderly, disabled, homeless, whatever additional. Yeah. But making all residents feel welcome and taking care of vulnerable residents,
I see you.
I
Okay.
think that might be the better way to deal with this. So we're not changing the dynamic.
I mean, I think we've all said our pieces and know where we're at, right? Okay, let's move on with presentations, please.
I'd like to clarify direction, if that's okay.
Yeah,
So if what I'm hearing from the board is remove on question 5, what is 2 and 3? Is that correct?
yeah, and then on D14, man, woman, and other.
I do propose that we get community feedback on this, because if anybody was reading the packet, they were reading it as is, so they may not have felt to have any feedback on this. I don't think that we should make any decisions or direction until we receive significant feedback posed with the changes that are suggested.
Thank you for your input. Public comments after this.
Also, what are thoughts on number 11, removing federal government?
I agree with that. I think it should be.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that one.
And then the last question on number 7.
Number 7.
The openness and acceptance, community towards people with diverse backgrounds. Did you guys want to leave that one in? Or just to all backgrounds? Or
I
does
would
it
do
matter?
all backgrounds.
It's not measurable if we do it that way.
Oh, then I would say that openness to participate in community matters, volunteering. This is a large column.
I think I agree. We do need to get community input. And really, depending upon how, I mean, if we even leave the stuff the way it is right now, we're gonna get input in it. We're gonna maybe good, bad, or ugly, but we're gonna see what the community does say at that point. So I know we would like to be as inclusive and unifying as possible, but maybe this shouldn't be that way. I don't know.
So you're saying leave it as it is?
I'm almost sitting there thinking, leave it as it is.
The whole
Just
thing?
because I think at that point, again, we're gonna get the good, bad, and the ugly at that point. And I think that's what we're looking for.
Okay. I'd be down with that.
One statement I want to make too is that we are hiring and paying money to do a survey by people who are experts in putting together a survey and wordsmithing. And I promise what we could come up with at this table right now with our limited knowledge, without the science and communication and background, how these questions interplay with each other. The reason why they ask our town versus federal government is because those two questions are interconnected. They want to say, do you like us more or less than? That's why those two items are in there. These are experts. I work in data analysis. This is not just something where somebody puts questions that they consider. There's science that goes into these to make them crafted exactly as they are, so they capture the information. So for us to say we can wordsmith it better, that's not right. These are people who are professionals that we're paying a significant amount of money for their value.
Mayor Shosse, can I make a recommendation? That perhaps we've heard you on this piece, and that you come up with a couple themes or topics you would like for your custom questions. Staff can work with Polco and craft those questions and bring that back to another meeting where you can have the public comment as requested by a couple of
Well, I
you.
mean, Trustee Wiegand's thinking we leave it the way it is. I mean, I'm not opposed to that. I don't want to postpone this. I don't want to make this turn into something that it doesn't need to turn into. Trustee Daly would be for keeping it the way it is.
Absolutely. And I think if we make these changes without soliciting feedback regarding those specific changes,
Yeah.
we will go down in history in a bad way.
No. That won't be till later. I mean, let's take another consensus. So I know we're I know where trustee Wiegand is. I know where trustee Daly is. Trustee Mason. Is this a hill you want to die on?
Well, no, quite frankly. I mean, if this, I suppose I would not be opposed to using the standardized questions as written from the National Research Center. If we need to baseline it off something and the results are going to be invalidated the other way, it only makes sense that we use the standard questions.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense for data collection, right? If that's what this whole thing's about. So where are you at, trustee Teets?
So number 5, I do agree.
Just say yes or
so-
no.
1,
Keep it as
2,
it is
3,
or
4.
change it.
So completely keep it as it is or change it? I would like to change it. I support
Okay.
John.
Trustee Gator, you're still on the change it?
Yeah,
Okay.
I understand the concerns with data relative, again, it's about what data are we talking about? You know, changing a couple of things. Yes, it invalidates the results from those specific questions, but again, in my opinion, those are not things that we need to be focusing on. So it
Okay.
doesn't invalidate the rest of the survey. So you stand
So
by the
you're
changes
stand
that
by
I think
yours.
need to be changed.
Okay. I would say the board majority says keep it as it is.
Okay, are we ready for custom questions? At our last board meeting that we discussed this in January, we did not actually talk about the custom questions. We more talked about the add-ons to it. And I know we've been talking over almost the last year about like, oh, that could be a custom question. So staff and I, we try to put our heads together of trying to remember all the things that we mentioned. And so today I was able to work with a couple staff members, trying to comb through some previous minutes, our strategic planning session. And so this is not in your packet tonight, so I apologized. So I think one of them that we have talked about on and off, and you can correct me if you don't support this, but it's communications. So how do you receive town news? So a type of custom question that we could include is how much of a source, if at all, are the following of the ways in which you get information about town government, its activities and its services. So that would be a longer breakout. There's a similar type of question in the customs in the back. So that could be something that you ask, and that also aligns with your strategic plan pillars that you have. Another area that we could ask, and again, we have about 3 to 4 questions depending on how lengthy they are. Another one that you could ask, which could be very open-ended, and they only recommend doing one completely open-ended question. So this would be more about high-level future questions. So is there a community issue or concern that is not addressed in the survey that you would like the town of Wellington to prioritize in the next 5 years? Please only explain one. So that's a way of getting at, and we've heard this in previous community surveys, like the comprehensive plan, of people saying, you know, you didn't get to the heart of my concern. So that's one way of asking that. Another way of asking it, it's sort of similar. But the other type of question could be, what do you think is the single most important priority for the town of Wellington to address in the next 5 years? So sort of similar, but that might kind of get to it. So those could be 2 questions that we work on. I know that there's been questions about fiscal responsibility and transparency. There is a couple questions in the survey that ask about like transparency and trust in local government. That's under question 10. So if those don't get to the heart of what the board was looking at under financial transparency, we could ask a question along the lines of, I trust the town of Wellington to spend my tax dollars responsibly. Maybe that kind of gets to what you guys are looking at. So that would get to you close to 3 questions. Another one could be a larger breakout question, and it might be appropriate. We have a lot of ideas up in the air as we look through the strategic planning session. We've talked about buses, we've talked about trails, we've talked about a community rec center. So you could structure some type of question that says, on a scale, would you support or oppose the local government in investing in the following? And it could be a larger breakout of those things. So it could give a good indication to this board and future boards when the next 2 years comes about of, you know, a lot of people said that rec center that they're interested in, or a lot of people said police, more investment in police. So, you know, that would be up to the board on where you want to structure that. But I think getting at those four might hit at some of your strategic plan pillars that you guys have been working on.
Yeah, Trustee Wiegand.
As far as the different ones that we'd like to do on the other.
Yeah, I mean, what she just presented, do you think that's,
That sounds real good. I think we do need a rec center. Like I said, I think that's been a main focal point of a lot of people in our community, and I think we need to have more input on that. This is what we're gonna have to be looking for the future, putting the money. So I'd be all for that.
Okay.
yeah, I understand.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely a big fan of the how do you receive feedback question. We've heard that one obviously quite a few times. We've not really had a whole lot of time to talk about this. So I guess one of the things I'd like to bring up before the board would be, would you guys support some type of question that is, would you support an X tax increase for X service, whether that may be a rec center or streets or something like that? And just ask something like that generally just to get kind of a bead. And not to say that I've got anything specific in mind. I was just kind of putting that out there to see what the board thought.
Kind of like a fire department mill levy kind of deal.
Yeah, I actually like that idea of doing the question of, rather than just saying, do you support the government funding these things? Because that just sounds like, oh, it's great, they're gonna use their money. Would you support a tax increase to have X, Y, and Z? Because that ultimately is really what it comes down to. In most cases, it's not to say you can't ever do it any other way. Most of the time it does require some type of a tax increase somewhere. I think that's a good way to ask the question to see, because that really is, it comes down to, are you willing to pay money? Because that's, government gets all of its money from us. So I like that way of phrasing that question, and we can tie it into, like Ms. Houghteling said, all those different areas of whether it be transportation, whether it be rec center, whether it be town hall, you name it. We can, all those different things that we've been on the horizon of things that we've considered doing. I think we can add those in there to kind of see where people fall in that. And I don't know, we give a number, just would you support a tax increase?
Yeah, a
to
tax-
help-
a
we don't
tax
need to put a
increase
number next to
for
it, but a tax increase to help
Amenities
support.
wanted or something.
Sure. I hear what you all are saying, but gets really complicated in government finances. There's a lot of different ways to fund a lot of, like, you could get full grant funded for a bus for all I know, so there, you don't necessarily, it might not be a tax. So you don't, I think that's where the word, and are you willing to support the government investing in, and that's staff resources investing in, that word investing means a lot of different things. So unless you're willing to, I think, if we get this Parks Rec Trail Master Grant plan, you might get more data. And I also want to follow up and say, and I have not mentioned it yet because we're focused on this baseline survey, but with this tool and our engagement with Polco and NRC, we have the ability to do ongoing surveys with the community. So say the board gets this data, and then in August you go, you know what, we'd like to explore a tax along a rec center. We can do, it's not going to be scientific, but we can certainly send that out through our social media channels, our newsletter, or any other thing that comes up, or maybe the board has a big issue that you want community feedback. Through this year of being engaged with them, we have access to this online tool. So that might be a way to do a deeper dive on one of those questions that you're very curious about.
Gravy.
Yeah, I think if you put it where people are putting their own money towards it as per taxes, then you can really see how serious they are for each one, whether it's a rec center or whatever. It's easy to say, would you like to have such and such, but you want to pay for it too? I think that's the defining part right there. So I think that'd be good to have in the question.
Some people might not like taxes, but it also, if it's important to you, you won't care.
Yeah.
You'll be like, yes, like for me, when the transportation thing came out from Larimer County and it was going to help us fix our roads, I don't like increasing taxes, but I was like, I will pay an extra tax if it helps to get this bridge over the freeway built. So yes, I will support something like that. So I think it's understanding, absolutely, there are other ways that we might not have to do a tax, right? Maybe there is a different way to do that. But if we ask the question versus we truly are going to find out how important is this to people? Because if people are saying, yes, I am willing to pay a tax on this, this is something we should focus on, and if we can find other ways that they don't have to tax it, great,
Right.
it's even better, but we know this is something people really want to see happen. That's
Importance to
my
them.
thought on it.
Trustee Daly.
I understand the sentiment behind all these comments. Absolutely. I think we're getting ahead of ourselves is the problem. So I think the first step is, what are you guys interested in and what do you want us to invest in? Step one. All the questions about funding, since it is so complicated, you can't go to someone and say, we're going to increase your tax, but we can't tell you why or how or what, how much. And if you say the word tax, people want to know that. That's important. So we can't throw words out like that. We have no idea how it would be funded. So, but what would happen is, let's say 100% of the people say we want to invest in a rec center. Then what happens is we have the understanding and collective energy from the community to say, we need to pursue this further. And at that point, we would do a specific campaign just for the rec center that surveys and has very targeted many details, not just one yes or no, but what would your involvement be? Would we get money back when they go to the rec center? How often would you use it? What kind of facility do you want? And then that's where you get the engagement in the community where they said, I'm willing to do this for this. And it's very specific and targeted just for that one thing. And this is how it works. This is every community I spoke with who did proceed with a bond. This is how it happened. They saw a collective need and want from the community. And then they created a very specific campaign to get more information, to know exactly what they needed to build, how to pay for it. That's how the process works. If we include that in here, it's going to, if anything, confuse people that it's happening. We're going to get all kinds of questions, and it's not going to be transparent, honest, in my opinion. But as recommended, because I think it gets us to the next step of, do we go to the next step or not?
Okay.
And that's what I want to hear from the community.
Okay. Trustee Teets.
I actually like the Parks and Recreation one that was suggested in the list of questions. Knowing that I would really like to see if our community is wanting additional stuff for parks, rec, activities that they're offering, questions of if with the ADA stuff. I think that one is extremely important. One, because of the fact that we're doing parks, trails, and recreation items, but also at the same time, it gives good leeway to know to our recreation program what is the community actually looking for in activities. So I liked the park and recreation one.
Which one there was?
Yeah, there's
Sorry.
yeah.
Sorry, page 36.
Yeah,
Right.
One
Which
of those
one
three.
of those
There's three
three?
different parks and recreation questions.
So I circled the second one down. How interested, if at all, is
Got
your
it.
household in the following activities or services? But then the next few down are, please indicate how likely you would be to participate. So you could be interested, but what's the chances of you actually participating if this program was offered? So I think some of these might go, Kelly, correct me if I'm wrong, might go hand in hand with a further understanding of, one, activities offered, and two, would they actually participate? There's social clubs, travel programs, age appropriate fitness classes. So those kind of things we heard in our last trustee meeting. We had people come speak to us about these exact things.
Pickleball.
Right. So, and even senior fitness classes. So that was something that was definitely brought up. So I would like to have more information about that. And then page 37, please rate your community on each of the following. 1, 2, third question down for the policing, sorry. So making all residents feel welcome, helping new residents feel connected. Is this just might be a repeat of the question that was already presented to us?
It's specifically asking about like police department, policing.
Got
so
it.
It's a little bit different.
Got it.
Like how the police department makes you feel. welcome, I
Right.
think.
So, and that's something that I would love to have more information on.
Perfect.
And those are the two that I kind of focused on in that.
Just for clarification, Trustee Teets, the policing questions are question number 1 and question number 2 on 37. And then it moves into the DEI questions below, which was the one that you were speaking to.
Correct.
Just for clarification. That's all.
Okay.
It's not part of the policing. It's a separate section.
Okay. So board direction?
So we can only have 5, correct?
3 to 4.
3 to 4. Okay.
Mhm.
I still would be good with the town feedback question that you had, Kelly. And I think I would agree with trustee Teets. I would like to see one of the parks questions on there for sure.
Okay. So the communications question and one of the open-ended questions. Okay. That's good.
Yeah, I'd agree with the communication and open-ended one. I would like to try and get one regarding how we're doing with spending of taxpayer dollars, but at the same time, I also really like the one about things that you want us to prioritize spending money on. I think that would be helpful. Also with the communication one, is there a way, and I don't know that it might almost take up like 2 questions, because it's like, one, finding out how are people currently getting information, but at the same time figuring out how is it that you would prefer to get information? Because it may be they're getting information one way, but they would really like, hey, I wish you would do this, and then it would be easier for me to get information. I don't know if there's a way to word that without making it 2 separate questions. If we can, that would be great. If we can't, then maybe that's next year we try to add that in.
Would probably have to be 2 separate questions.
So is it fair to say that, yeah, trustee?
Communications is a must, I think, and I think that's posed correctly. I understand the follow-up need, but I think that's great. The investment one, I definitely like. Parks and Rec, I really like that one. And then one open-ended question. It was the first one you posed, not the second one. Could you repeat that one?
The first one is there a community issue or concern that is not addressed in the survey that you would like the town to prioritize in the next 5 years? Please explain one.
Yeah, I'm afraid that we would, with the second question, get water. And like, what should we do in the next 5 years?
Yeah.
I think people say water, which is absolutely correct, but also acknowledge in some of the other questions. I think as that's a known issue, I'd love to see things that people didn't know in here.
I would agree. I think that one is a must have, the open-ended one.
Okay. So we all agree there.
Sounds good.
Which Parks and Rec question do we want?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Good point. That's
Are we allowed to ask for Parks and Rec feedback on this one that would be most beneficial for him to take away from this as well? Is that appropriate?
yeah,
I'd rather him pick the one that's going to be successful for
I don't think he's up to speed on this topic, but you could put him on the spot, I guess.
I do want to note that one of them
Well, let's
only
not-
relates to adult programming, so I don't think we
Yeah,
should.
let's get rid of
restrict
the
it to
adult-
programming.
get rid of the adult programming.
I would say between 1 and 2 make the most sense. So that's our parks, and then rate the quality of the parks. That's 1.
But
Or
I think
2 is-
one is the most relevant to our community.
It does focus on parks. Number 2 focuses more on activities and services. So that would be kind of the difference. 1 is like, what is the state of our parks and everything
But a lot of those activities and services are things,
that happen at parks. So
I mean, tent or RV camping. I guess that's the only one that wouldn't really be that relevant. Ooh,
I like the second one.
yeah, there's a lot of good stuff there.
That kind of might give direction for Parks and Rec in future
For,
planning.
yeah. What are your thoughts?
Personally, I would agree.
Yeah?
Yeah, this is a real quick review for me.
yeah,
I just saw it. I've looked it over. I honestly didn't contemplate it that much, but I would say just looking at it now, the second one to me definitely looks like something we could work with.
All right, let's roll forward
do
with
it.
that one.
Thank you. I'm
Thanks.
sorry for putting you on the spot.
All right.
Thank you.
And the next one, so if you want to, oh wait, it's public comment.
Yeah.
Never mind. Sorry.
At this time, we'll open this up for public comment.
Lowry Moyer. Harrison Avenue. Forgive me, I rode my bike up here because I was so moved by your comments earlier. I am so greatly disappointed in this moment. I cannot even express how much. Whether you like it or not, whether they fit into your personal ideology or not, the LGBTQ community exists and they are important. They are no less or more than anyone else, but they deserve to be considered in this town. As heard in our discussions about book banning, they are a very vulnerable and marginalized population, and not just nationally, but within Wellington. They feel unwelcomed. Why would we not want to do whatever we can to make these people feel welcomed? Why would we not want to embrace our beautiful diversity of our community and find ways to support that? I would ask, what is it that you all are so scared of? What is it about people's differences and each person having the same chance to thrive that you are so personally afraid of? Do we want this town to be welcoming and somewhere that families, no matter how they are classified or want to live or do and want to, do we want them to feel welcomed, all of them? Or do we want to be a town full of old white men and their minions that are stuck so far behind and not progressing at all? What do we want? No one is saying that you have to give your money, put your money behind diversifying our community. Just don't scare them away. Make them feel welcome. Don't let your hatred and your ignorance scare them away. Dig deep and think how you want to be seen, each of you as a leader. If you want to serve our whole community, then serve our whole community. Serve them and give them all the same chance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Christine Gator. I like what Lowry said in that we need to serve the whole community. Completely agree. So we don't need to break out special people. We don't need to break out, separate, just leave it as a whole. Get rid of the diverse ones. Get rid of all the gender questions. We don't need that. Who cares? It's just for, it's going to divide the community. You got people on both sides. And if you want to unify this community, just take out the things that we are arguing about. How about that?
Thank you. Any final comments from the board on this subject? No? Go for it, Trustee Teets.
So I just want to address, because I feel, and I could be totally wrong on this, but I think there was a misunderstanding somewhere along the line when you look at the question D14 and then D14A, what is your gender? Woman, man, identify in another way. Then it goes into the sub-column at D14A. If you identify any other A, how would you describe your gender? The only downfall is when I look through everything, there's nothing else in these questions that break anything else out to allow for additional definition. This one is the only question that has a D14A. So I am in line with the idea of understanding man, woman, and then any other, because if this is a focus on just a survey in general, it goes back to, we're leaving the question number 5, attracting people from diverse backgrounds and the valuing, respecting residents from diverse backgrounds. This is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kelly, this is just a generalization of who's filling out the form. This isn't asking their opinion on anything.
It's a demographics, yeah.
Correct. Okay, so that's my only question is we're asking a demographic.
Yeah.
So, and I don't think in that end, the understanding, it was not to segregate anyone. It was so no one felt segregated. So we weren't dividing, we were identifying a man, a woman, or other. It wasn't going into the additional details because at the end of the day, like Trustee Gator explained, being an African-American man, he also did not want to have his diversion listed in this document. So it's just identifying those additional details. I don't think anyone meant any harm or had hateful intent when they discussed question D14.
Thank you. So
Just clarifying based on the board consensus, my understanding was we are making no changes as a board to any of the standard questions or demographic questions. Is that correct from what is listed in the packet?
that is correct.
Thank you.
Following public comment, I agree with our earlier recommendations more so. And given the nature of the survey, a lot of these questions may not even be applicable. So as a sub question, if it's provided in a web form, a lot of times those sub questions aren't even prompted unless the original question prompts that question. So likely if someone were to answer man or woman, there's no reason why they would be then triggered by any other identity as shown. So, you know, the whole thing of the conflict or causing division over this is likely not even applicable, but removing it does cause a lot of conflict. So I
Right.
appreciate with our earlier recommendations and I stand behind that after hearing public comment.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it really doesn't matter what our own personal beliefs are in the situation. Because if we stand behind that, we're not standing behind the community. So we need to do our best to get the best demographics possible, get the best data as possible so this community can thrive. Okay, moving forward, Ms. Houghteling. This will be the resolution for Board of Trustees, Town of Wellington, authorizing the submittal of a grant application to the Colorado State Outdoor Recreation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So before you tonight is a resolution of support, which would be included in the grant packet. So this project with Parks and Trails master planning has been deferred over the last couple of years. And some of that is due to COVID. We did stop any non-emergency type of funding for the community. This has also been a priority of our PROST, our Parks Rec Open Space and Trails Advisory Board, and they support this as well. This is a great guiding document that will give us information about planning for those parks, trail, and open spaces. It'll include research and data collection, a needs assessment. It will identify strategies of land acquisition. It'll explore regional and trail opportunities and even a regional park opportunity. So our PROST Advisory Board, I'd like to give them, commend them for all their work because they've sought a lot of letters of support. We have a letter from City of Fort Collins, Congressman Joe Negus's office. We have a lot of community members that have submitted letters that'll help our application. So within that, the application is due at the end of March here. We are asking in our grant application for the max award, which is $100,000. The Board of Trustees has budgeted $80,000 for this project, but we would like to have the project completely covered. We did include more money in that budget because we saw the comprehensive plan process lasted about 12 to 18 months. And we know we have a community that likes to be very involved. So we want to ensure that there is robust public engagement, plenty of opportunities for one-on-one stakeholder meetings, additional surveys, which include additional time for that company to be working with us. So seeing that process play out, we are trying to budget accordingly. So that's why we're asking for the $100,000 from the grant application. It's very, very competitive. This is the last round of funding, so it might be likely that if we do get funding, it might come in less. And so that's why I included the $10,000, asking the board to match that because that gets you additional points within the application. So if they saw that the project would go up to $110,000, say they cut that amount, they say we can only give you 90, then they feel we could still successfully complete the project. So I think that will give us additional points that is needed for the application. And this is also in the board's strategic plan. Any questions?
Trustee Gator,
No questions.
trustee Teets,
No questions.
No questions.
Given that we have budgeted $80,000, I think a $10,000 funding is a fantastic deal. So I think that's great. We should definitely provide not just our verbal and resolution support, but also put our money where our mouth is and make sure that we support this.
any comments from public on this agenda item? No. May I get a motion in a second on this agenda item?
I move to approve resolution number 10, 2023, a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Wellington, Colorado, authorizing the submittal of a grant application to Colorado State Outdoor Recreation Grant.
Second.
Any final comments? No. May I get a roll call, please?
Trustee Daly,
Yes.
trustee Gator,
Yes.
trustee Mason,
Yes.
trustee Teets,
Yes.
trustee Wiegand,
Yes.
Mayor Shosse.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the final action item will be a resolution to appoint the new town clerk, Ethan Moose. First, I would like to welcome Ethan to the Wellington team. It's gonna be a great asset. You guys can ask him what you'd like, or he can tell us a little bit about himself. I think,
Let's let him.
let's let him tell him about himself.
Yes, I think so. I think it's a good idea.
So, hello, everyone. Thank you, Mayor Shosse, for the warm welcome. My name is Ethan. I moved to Northern Colorado after an 8-year career on active duty in the U.S. Army. I was an aviation officer. I commissioned initially in 2014 and served all over the world. I moved to Northern Colorado because I wanted to establish a more stable life with my community and with my family. And as a result, I applied to this position, and I'm greatly honored for the opportunity to develop a professional relationship with the board, the town staff, and the citizens of Wellington as we provide municipal government to the community. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
So I can tell you that Ethan comes with very limited experience in local government, but what he's bringing as far as leadership and ideas and communications is unquestionable. So we are thrilled. He hit the ground running. Yesterday was his first day and he's already sitting and taking the minutes and running the AV, and we are just doing the happy dance inside. So we are just thrilled that he's here. So before you is a resolution tonight, as for appointing Ethan Moose as the town clerk for the town of Wellington, and staff wholeheartedly recommends approval of that.
Any comments from the Board of Trustees?
First of all, thank you, sir, for your service.
Thank you.
And we are so excited for you to be here. Thank you so much.
Trustee Gator?
So again, we want to echo what Trustee Daly said. Thank you, sir, for your service. Much appreciated. And I know when Patty was telling me he's going and interviewing the other clerks, and I think it's great. You have the leadership, you've got the confidence, people skills, that's important. It's not to say knowledge of government is, yes, you need it, but you have Patty, you've got Kelly. There's so many great sources here in Wellington, and you've already reached out to others. So I have great confidence you're going to do a fantastic job. So welcome to the team.
Thank you.
Trustee Teets?
Welcome. We are very excited to have you, and I'm excited to see some of Patty's stress level decline just a little bit.
It already has, so thank you.
Trustee Wiegand?
And welcome. And I think it's going to be pretty neat seeing somebody completely outside the government come in. I think it's going to give you some insight that it's going to be very welcome.
Trustee Mason?
Welcome, Ethan. Great to have you on board. I know obviously that's going to provide a lot of relief for Patty. We've needed a town clerk for quite a while now, but as a fellow veteran, definitely want to thank you for your service. That's really good stuff, and really appreciate that. So look forward to having you on board.
Yeah, I mean, I've been thrilled with you since the interview process, so I am just ecstatic that you took the job and you're going to be working for the town. So it's going to be a good thing for all of us and for yourself to grow professionally and see where it takes you.
Thank you very much.
So thank you. Any comment from the public on this? Perfect. May get a motion and a second on the resolution.
Move to approve resolution number 11-2023, a resolution of the Board of Trustees appointing, one second, let me get to the actual agenda item. So I can say your name hopefully correctly. Ethan Moose
Yeah.
as town clerk.
Second,
Any final comments? Nope. May I get a roll call, please?
Trustee Gator,
Yes.
trustee Teets,
yes.
trustee Daly,
Yes.
trustee Mason,
Yes.
trustee Wigan,
Yes.
Mayor Shosse.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Now we will close the regular meeting and open the liquor authority or liquor license authority board, time being 8:06 PM. May I get a roll call, please?
Trustee Gator,
Here.
trustee Daly,
Present.
trustee Mason.
Here.
Trustee Teets,
Here,
trustee Wigan,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem McDonald, Mayor Shosse.
Here. All right. The only item is liquor license authority agenda will be the renewal of Ridley's Family Market. Ms. Garcia.
So before you is the renewal for Ridley's Family Market. The state of Colorado is a dual licensing authority, so the application comes to the town first and then will be sent to the state after consideration by the licensing authority. You may note that the date on the application has a renewal date of February 8th, 2023. The application was submitted on February 2nd, 2023. In the state of Colorado, with the licensing authority that we have, as long as the application, the renewal application is received by the local authority before the renewal date, it's considered approved. So right now, it's just in process. If we would get a call from a vendor asking if their liquor license, if they had a valid liquor license, the answer would be yes. So they can continue on. Sometimes when there's changes in managers and sometimes things in the mail there's hiccups, people don't get their renewals from the state. So we follow up with those individuals or those businesses to make sure that they get renewed in time. So this one came in just right at the nick of time. So everything came through fine. The information from the sheriff's office as far as their premise check and the background check is in the packet as well. And staff recommends approval.
Perfect. Any comments from the Board of Trustees?
You already answered the only one I did have because I saw the note that it was 2-8 and I was like, what? Thank you for explaining that. That was the only question I had.
No questions. Perfect. Any comments from the public? No comments from the public. May I get a motion and a second to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve Ridley's Families Market Incorporated DBA Ridley's Family Markets liquor store license renewal.
Second.
Awesome. Roll call, please.
Trustee Teets,
Yes.
trustee Wigan,
Yes.
trustee Gator,
Yes.
trustee Daly,
Yes.
trustee Mason,
Yes.
Mayor Shosse.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. On to reports. Town Attorney, Mr. Sapienza.
Nothing major to report right now. Keeping an eye on some bills that are going through the Colorado General Assembly at the moment that affect municipalities. Colorado Municipal League does a really good job of tracking those. One item that's coming up in this next week is a bill on a task force to look at municipal courts and sharing data. Whether it passes or not, it's just gonna be a task force looking at it, but we're kind of looking at some interesting things on the horizon as the General Assembly takes a closer look at municipal courts. In the future, that may increase costs and other things, but just there's a lot of bills out there we're watching, so.
Thank you. Ms. Garcia.
Okay, I have a couple reports regarding grants which have been published on social media, but I felt they were worthy of public acknowledgement in a public meeting. So we received a $608,000 grant for the Viewpoint Lift Station. This is a congressionally direct spending grant, which had to pass both the House and the Senate for approval. So it was a big deal. We had a lot of competition on that one, and to get that grant was really a big deal. In order to plan for future housing needs, we received a $52,500 Department of Local Affairs grant to complete an affordable housing study. This will really help us as we move forward looking at affordable housing and allow us to apply for grants for that as we move forward. The Revitalizing Main Street grant will address bulb outs, crosswalks, ADA needs, and drainage in the downtown area. There will not be any construction in 2023. So we get a lot of questions about that, but this year is a design year and construction will happen probably in 2024. We'll know more as it's a seed out project. So we are just watching and waiting and waiting on information. And last, for anybody who's been in my office, you know that I have this long list of topics on my whiteboard for the trustees to talk about. And we're slowly working through them. And now with Ethan on board and getting fully staffed, I'm actually starting to put check marks next to some of these items. So it's pretty exciting for me. So next week you'll have a presentation by Sursa and you'll have the Water 101 and cash in lieu water discussions. The week after that, the next work session on April 18th, we'll talk about the off-road vehicles, which Trustee Teets had asked about, marijuana sales tax collection, a presentation related to the library board, and a presentation on the flock cameras. So that'll be a full night, but I'm anxious to start getting some of these topics in front of you, and I'm actually going to have time to put into them to make sure that the information that you're getting is what you're looking for. So I'm really excited for the future of Wellington, and just thank you. Thank you for allowing me to serve. So
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Staff communications. I know we have some stuff in the packet with list of bills, water, wastewater, utility report. Anybody questions, concerns, need a report? No? Okay. Board reports. We'll start with Trustee Daly.
The first one I want to start with is a Solid Waste Policy Council. There was a what Commissioner Capalas likes to call a lively discussion on last week. And essentially what we came up with is the next plan of action is to find our rules of engagement, essentially is what does the policy council do? And then what? Then what happens? And then who plays a role? And those kind of things. A major common feedback that they got was that we have great conversation. All the communities have learned a lot about each other and their priorities. But what are the actions that are related to that that we would see? So another great news is I did talk to Lori and she committed to, and I know she's already talked with our staff to provide detailed responses to everything in our memo. And I think that will give me more grounds to go further. They are under the impression that the majority of our concerns have already been acknowledged in a operations document since 2019. I don't think that's the case. So, but what's nice is we will have all the documentation together, acknowledging each one of our concerns in our memo. And that will give me, again, what I said, what I need to move forward. So, and then everybody will have that same information on that. And if you have any recommendations or guidance, I would appreciate that as well. There was a thought of essentially, potentially, dissolving or not participating in the policy council from some of the other communities involved. Of course, I didn't receive any direction for that movement. And personally, I don't agree with it because any opportunity we have to be heard and be represented in this larger collective group is an advantage in my mind. So, but if anybody feels otherwise, please let me know. So that's Policy Council. I'm looking forward to it. The TAC was very active too, and there's no contract work that has been done yet with Republic Services. So there was nothing to review at this point, but in the future, there potentially will be. So as soon as I hear more about that, I'll let you know. We are planning on meeting more frequently. Okay. The other one is Senator Marchman and Minority Leader Lynch are going to be doing a kind of town hall here next week, immediately before our trustee meeting. And they will be here with the Division of Housing, Division of Water, and apparently I'm speaking. I just found that out. So, but I'm welcome to do it. I'm happy. So if anybody is interested in meeting or getting to know Senator Marchman, I suggest that you come. She's fantastic. I got to spend time with her at the Capitol last week when we were discussing a bill relating to math funding for after-school programming. So she's a fantastic person and I'm really lucky. And I think it's really wonderful that she's giving so much attention to Wellington. I don't know if that's happened so much in the past. So she really cares about what's going on here. And then again, it was mentioned.
Yeah.
Oh,
when does it
5:30.
start?
5:30.
Perfect.
And it ends at,
Happening here.
it's in, yep.
Yep.
I got an email saying I was speaking at it.
Okay, I'm just checking to make sure we.
Yeah, I was wondering about that too. So yeah, the 21st, March 21st,
Do you see the deer in the headlights?
5:30 to 6:30. I RSVP'd today and then I realized there was an email that came out on the 9th saying I was speaking. But I'm happy. I love it. Everybody knows I'll say yes. Yeah, everybody knows I'll say yes and I'm happy to do it. So the last thing that was mentioned earlier, but needs more consideration. If there's any community members, organizations, government entities, anybody who has an interest in supporting a strategic plan for parks and trails, we would need your letter of support, preferably by tomorrow, just indicating why it's important to our town and what the benefits could be. If you would like a quick list of our identified key points from the staff perspective, so that you understand the project more thoroughly, that's available, readily available. So if anybody does want that, please reach out, and then I am really looking forward to and appreciated the community support thus far. So, but I don't want to leave anybody out if you would also like to participate. Thanks.
Thank you. Trustee Gator.
No report.
Okay. Trustee Teets.
Volunteer appreciation dinner. So this was something that we had momentarily addressed a while ago and talked about doing a volunteer appreciation dinner for all of our different boards and volunteers here in the community. It has been brought to my attention that there is possibility of moving forward with this next month, if that is something that our board still supports doing. One, looking at if we are using any of the board's funds, what would be that cap that we're looking at in order to host it, just so there's some kind of budget set in place. Then I'd say the last one is if there is an additional trustee that is wanting to assist with planning the volunteer appreciation dinner, I'm happy to take some additional assistance on that, but I'm hoping to take a little bit off of Patty's plate when it comes to getting all of this organized and put together for all of our volunteers. So
Okay.
I guess I have two
So-
things.
Okay, so you're looking for a dollar amount budget
Correct.
and then another volunteer.
If they want to, yes.
Do you know how much we have in the board discretionary fund?
That was one thing that's the one thing I did not get to today.
Oh, okay.
But I can.
Because I
we
don't
haven't
think,
spent any
we
money
haven't
out
spent
of it yet,
anything out of
so-
it.
Our biggest expenditure is going to be CML this year, right?
Yeah, but that'll be.
That's
different. That
separate
comes
from
out
the
of
board
Oh,
discretionary.
yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Let me pull up the budget real quick and I'll get the number.
Yep.
For other people want to say that.
I did check for available dates.
Trustee Teets, do you know how many people will be attending?
I don't. That's something I'm going to have a discussion with Patty about.
Okay.
Goodness.
I would recommend, though, having a larger idea if we're going to make any budget decisions as an actual item. So I think we have time to kind of organize and plan, figure out what your recommendations would be, and then bring this formally as a quick action
wise.
item, since it has to do with the budget.
Yeah, we'll bring that back.
Bring it back. I can work with Trustee Teets on, and Ethan can on dates and things like that. I did find a couple dates that there was absolutely nothing happening with anyone. So those are
Okay.
few and far between.
Perfect.
Got it.
Okay.
So for perspective, $20,000 is our board discretionary fund.
Okay.
So,
Let's throw one.
but I think
wager.
that's a good idea. And I think that the thought process I had was, I know, yeah, we got the cool cups at it, is that if we as trustees can kind of help with the planning process, I think that would just help that way. And then we just let staff know, hey, we're going to use this portion. I think it's a good idea to bring it back next week. Or next. Well, we have a special meeting next week.
Yeah.
Do we want to just add it on to this, just setting a cap? Because I think as long as we set a cap, I mean, anything we do on it's going to be within Patty's ability to spend funds.
Yeah.
Are you guys okay with setting a cap at the special meeting next week? That way we have plenty of planning time before April, because I know we talked about trying to do it with Volunteer Appreciation Week, which is like second week of April or something.
Sure, I think any time in the month of April would be appropriate. That's when most do their volunteer appreciation events, is sometime in the month of April.
Okay.
And this will give us a chance. I could not find the records from the previous advisory board appreciation
Okay.
dinner, so I wasn't sure how much it was.
Okay.
So this will give us a chance to find that
Perfect.
documentation. So thank you.
Great.
So I will reach out to Patty this week.
Yeah. Thanks for putting that together and putting your nose to the grindstone for that. Trustee Wiegand, no report. Trustee Mason, no report. You guys, it's great working with all you guys. You know, we get through things, make things happen. We're working for the town. We're doing a good job. Thank you to the staff. Thank you for everybody. Appreciate you, Sergeant Sherry. Good night, everybody. Everybody say aye.
I think they stay, she said. Yeah. In the email, it stays. I can print you out one and laminate it if you want one. I have a format printer at home.
And it's not on our like calendar. So if you can, I don't know who to contact. If you want to forward me the email and that way